Hi folks, let's talk about formatting and specifically how can we make our tables look like they're professional tables that we can drop into reports rather than just boring spreadsheet tables. And we can do that using custom formatting in Sheets or conditional formatting, and there's also various interesting little formulas that can make our tables that much more professional. So that's what we're going to check out in this lesson. So here's a pretty boring spreadsheet table, and I want to show you how we can make it much more interesting and more visually appealing by adding some little formulas and some little changes to this percent change column here, and then some overall formatting steps as well. So we're going to start by looking at how we can add up and down arrows to show whether we have a positive increase or a negative decrease, and then we'll turn them into red and greens, and then we'll add some formatting. So that's what we're going to start with here. So let's see how we add those up and down arrows. What we're going to do is use custom formatting, and this is pretty cool actually. So let's go and check it out. So the first thing I want to do is make a copy of those symbols that I want to use. So the up, down arrows, the lefts and rights, and I'm going to also just chuck in a couple of extra ones that are sort of fun. So I'm going to use a formula called char, and it takes the input of a number and turns that into a symbol. And these are the numbers I use. And we'll just drag this down. Hopefully I've got these right. There's all the symbols, and what I'll do is I'll just make a copy of them here as well as values only, so that way I can copy them into my custom formatting, as we'll see. Now when we're done, we'll be able to delete all of these, so these are just really for working at the moment, so I can copy them. So let's look at how we apply some custom formatting here. So I have them highlighted. I'm going to come into the menu here under the 1, 2, 3, more formats and custom number formats. And let me just quickly mention that what you can see here is that these pound signs mean a variable placeholder, so it could be any one of the numbers, and the 0 is for the 0th placeholder, so it's always going to apply a number 0. If there was no value there, it would still put the 0 there. So if I had just a decimal only and I omit the 0 there, if it was like this with a pound sign, and we click apply, then you'll see what happens is it misses off those zeros there. So it needs to have that 0 there, not the pound sign. So the 0 is there to say, hey, if there's nothing there, make sure you put in a 0 for me. Other things I can do is if I clear all of this out and we'll put a 0 and a percent, then what I've done by not specifying any decimal places means that it's going to round that number up for me. If I had 1 decimal place, then it would be to a 1 decimal place precision. So we'll get rid of the decimal places. If I put a semicolon, then it splits me into a positive and negative numbers. So maybe I want a negative sign in front of the negative numbers. And similarly, if I have another semicolon, it's saying, what do you want the 0 number to look like? Maybe we'll just put that as a 0%. And then finally, if you had any text in that column, how do you want me to format that text? Now, in this case, we don't have any text, so we can just leave that last one blank like that, which would mean that if there was any text there, it would just be it wouldn't show in the cell in the formats. So we'll click apply, and that's got me back to my nice percent sign there. So let's go ahead and just copy this symbol, go back to the formatting, more formats, custom, and we'll just add that in. We'll simply just copy that into there, press space, and what it does is it will insert that up arrow and a space before the positive percent. So we'll go apply, and there it's done it. It's just added that in. It was that easy. And then the second one, what we'll do is go into the value version here. Let's copy it. Let's highlight 1, 2, 3, more formats, custom, and we'll just do exactly the same thing. We'll paste that there in front of the negative and click apply. And now it's put the negative. Now with the left and right arrows, what I'll do first, just to speed things up, is actually just copy these into the same cell. So now let me just copy these. And 1, 2, 3, more formats, custom, and just drop them in front of the 0%, apply. And now you can see that I have the arrows in place. With the custom formatting, we can also apply the colors. So let's go and check that out. And this is ingenious. So what we do is in front of the positive numbers, we put square brackets and we say, well, first of all, we can just say green. And it gives me the highlight there of what that's going to look like. That's the very bright sort of fluorescent green. It's a bit harsh in the eyes, so maybe instead we'll go for color 10. And there's a link below the video which has the full details of all the different options here under the colors. So there are about 10 standard colors, so the red, green, yellow, blue kind of thing, and then another 56 colors available by writing the word color followed by a number. So let's go in front of the negative number now. We'll put the square brackets, we'll add the word red, and that one works pretty well. It's not as bright as the green one was, so I'm happy to leave that. So let's go ahead and just click apply now, and then that will add that color formatting to the custom formats. So there we go, and that's looking really nice now. If I hit 900, then that will give me it will flip the color around and add the downward arrow. Now the nice advantage using this method is that it hasn't changed the underlying data. So I can still, for example, say, okay, what's this change on a monthly basis? So I could just simply divide this by 12, and let's just change the percentage. I mean, we could apply the formatting if we wanted, but it's growing at 1.7% a month. So that's probably the principal advantage of doing this method. Let's copy the skull, and let's just change the formatting here. So we'll go up to the 1, 2, 3, more formats, custom. And this time, let's take out the arrow and let's put the skull and crossbones at the end there and say apply. And then the star when we've done well, let's add that in. So we'll get rid of the arrow, the up arrow at the start there, space, and we'll put that star in. And we'll get rid of those arrows, they're kind of superfluous really. We'll click apply. And now I've got stars when I've done well and skull and crossbones when I've done poorly. So let me show you the alternative method of doing this, which involves using some formulas and then some conditional formatting. So what I can do is to do this. So we'll do equals char 9650 and a space and the percent amount. Now what it's done is it's removed that formatting and just gone back to the basic number. And I'll show you how we fix that in the next table. But for now, let's just leave it at that in that format. So we'll do the same with this one. And I know what you're thinking, and we're going to fix that in just a moment, because obviously this is kind of ridiculous if I just type in these up and down arrows manually like this, because suddenly if this revenue happened to drop, then it's now a negative change. It's a decrease, but the arrow is still pointing up, so that's not going to work for us. So what we need to do is actually combine all of these with an if. So let's do that. So we'll go if, and we'll say if so it's C26 is greater than B26. So if the 2014 revenue is greater than the 2013 revenue, give me the char 9650. If the C26 is less than B26, so it's smaller than, give me that down arrow 9660. Otherwise give me the left and right arrows, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. So that's going to be the char 9668 and do a space and char 9658, close parentheses, close that one, and then we already have that, then our calculation added on to the end, so we should be good there. So let's hit enter. So now if I look, then what it's done is it's added the correct, let me delete those ones now, it's added the correct up and down arrows depending on whether it's increase or decrease, or if there's been no increase. That's what those left and right arrows are, which were the 9668, which is to the left, and the 9658 to the right. And we can see now if I try that, if I change that one, then those arrows automatically flip around as well. So that looks pretty good. So now the next thing really is just to change this back to a percentage. It's pretty easy. We're going to use a formula called the text formula, and we're just going to wrap this bit at the end here with text. So we'll say text, which is the formula there, and our number is just all of that. Then we'll put a comma, and we'll just do the percentage now, which is 0 and a percent, and then close up the parentheses there. And now that gives me 20% with no decimal places, which is what I want. And you can see now that's looking a lot better. It's now giving me the 20% increase, 7% decrease, etc. Let's just make this table a little more pretty to look at, because it's still very plain and boring. So let's go ahead and add some borders. I'll choose that third color along, I'll add some borders there, make the headings centered, I'll make them bold, and I'll fill them with that third color. Excuse me. I'll make them white and then fill them with that bold color there. And then all these ones will centerline, and these two here, we'll give them dollars, and we'll take off the decimal places. That's looking better already. And let's take a look at adding some conditional formatting. So I'm going to highlight this final column here, and I want to change them to green or red depending on whether they increased or decreased. So I'll highlight the column, format, conditional formatting, and I'm going to do custom formula, and I'm going to say equals left D63, so that's that first cell, and 1, what's the first character of that one? Does it equal to char 9650? And there we go. You can see it's if it's the first character is the up arrow, then make it green. What I'm actually going to do is we'll do no fill, but we'll make the text a green color. And it's changed that text now to a green, so we'll click done, and we'll add another rule which is the same, but we'll do it for the opposite. So we'll say equals left, and it's D63 again. We must start with the first one in the range, and we want to make it equal to char 9660 this time. And what it does is just checks each of these cells in turn then, because I've got this D63 referencing my first one, but it's applied to this whole range. And this time again we'll do no fill and a nice red color. Done, and let's just close out for now. So now I have a table with this conditional formatting applied to the final row. There might be one last thing I'd like to do, which is to highlight a whole row, and this time I'll highlight the whole range here, including the columns A, B, and C. Format, conditional formatting, add a new rule, and we'll say we'll do a custom formula, and we'll say this time it's the same rule pretty much actually. We'll do left D, and this time it's 76, and what we'll do is we'll put the $sign in front of that D. 1 equals char 9650, sorry 9660, because we're going to do the negative here, and we will actually make it a fill of the light red there, and let's give it the red text as well. And we'll click done, and then you look at it now and you think, well, it's pretty good, but it would be nice if that red really just carried on for that final column as well. And you'll notice that it applies this one first and then applies this one second, and this first one is taking precedence, and that first one, if you remember, we left with a white background. So what I can do is actually just flip those two round, and then it will move that red background to be applied first, and then it will apply the coloring. In fact, this rule is now actually superfluous because this captures the negative ones anyway. So let's go ahead and actually just delete that rule now, and there we go. So now if I was to change that to 900, that whole row should go to see a 10% decrease. If this one suddenly went up to 800, then it's a 14% increase. So we can see that actually this is working quite nicely now. There we go, folks. A few different techniques for formatting your tables to look really smart. Thanks for watching.